And there was a boy from my past, and we sat at the dining room table, and he told me that my father sexually abused him.
In a tiny apartment in Southern California, two college dropouts teamed up to start a watch brand that broke all the rules. With clean, innovative designs, unexpected colors, and unbeatable value, Movement became the fastest-growing watch brand in the world. Every bold, modern design is dreamed up at Movement's California headquarters. And now everything is on sale for their 9th birthday celebration. You can save big with 25% discounts on watches, jewelry, sunnies, blue light eyewear, and more lifestyle essentials. And for the first time this year, Movement's best-selling, innovatively made ceramic watches are on sale too. Elevate your own look or give someone an amazing gift that won't break the bank, but looks like it did. There's never been a better time to join the movement. Get the best prices of the year with Movement's site-wide 25% off anniversary sale and enjoy free shipping, free returns, and a 2-year guarantee on everything they make. Just go to mvmt.com. That's mvmt.com.
Progressive is America's #1 motorcycle insurer, so we understand motorcycles. No, really, we have a bike translator.
Okay, this is awkward, but this bike says he'd appreciate it if you removed his skull pattern saddlebags. He feels self-conscious about them around all the other bikes, and he says you're not fooling anyone. You mostly ride with your golfing buddies. Listen, I'm just the messenger here. Oh, no, I don't want to say that. I think you made yourself clear.
Quote with Progressive and see if you could save with America's #1 motorcycle insurer. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
This episode contains discussions of graphic sex, molestation, and sexual assault. Listener discretion is advised. Shh. Welcome to the Secret Life Podcast. Tell me your secret. I'll tell you mine. Sometimes you have to go through the darkness to reach the light. That's what I did. After 12 years of recovery in sex and love addiction, I finally found my soulmate, myself. Please join me in my novel, Secret Life of a Hollywood Sex and Love Addict, a 4-time bestseller on Amazon. It's a brutal, honest, raw, gnarly ride, but hilarious at the same time. Check it out now on Amazon. Welcome to Secret Life Podcast. I'm Brianne Davis-Gant. Today, I'm pulling back the curtains of all kinds of human secrets. We'll hear about what people are hiding from themselves or others. You know, those deep, dark secrets you probably want to take to your grave, or those lighter, funnier secrets that are just plain embarrassing. Really, the how, the what, the when, the where, and the why. Today, my guest is Melody. Now, Melody, I have a question for you. Dun, dun, dun. What is your secret?
My father is a pedophile.
Whoa, that was intense. The way you even said that. I don't even know what to say. How difficult for you to even say that out loud. Did that take a long time to actually say out loud?
Yes, it took a long time to say out loud. Now I say it in public too, but that took a long, long time.
Wow. Okay, let's go back. Take me back. Take me back to your childhood or wherever you want to start, because this is a conversation I've never had before. So I'm a little like starting to sweat. I have to be honest. Like I'm sweating a little. So how, what, when, where, and why?
Yeah. So let's go back to my childhood, where my father was a tyrant, right? The biggest bully in my life. He was an alcoholic. Oh. He doesn't have a diagnosis as far as I know, but he's either narcissistic or I don't know. He's something, right?
Right.
He used to be incredibly cruel. Mm-hmm. So just going to trigger warning for people. There's some really, rough stuff. But
don't worry, there will be trigger warnings all over this episode. Don't you worry.
Awesome. My father used to. He bought me a kitten, and then my kitten had cat kittens, and then he killed those kittens in front of me.
What? Wait. Yeah. Oh my God. What do you mean? How did he do that in front of you?
Well, I lived on a farm, and so the cats used to have their kittens in the barn. And so when they were ready, they bring them out. And I remember my cat brought these kittens out. Of course, they're wild, right? So you need to be really patient and work really hard to get them to trust you so you can pick them up and cuddle them. And my little 7-year-old brain thought that we were now this big, beautiful, happy family, and we were going to live together forever. And, you know, me and my cat was Pickles, because I love Pickles. Me and Pickles were going to, like, you know, raise these kittens, and we were going to, and so I worked so hard to get them to be tame. And and then when I finally succeeded, my father put them in a sack and killed them.
Oh my God, how traumatizing.
It was incredibly traumatizing. And so that's just a sample of what my childhood was like.
Wow.
Everything.
So you just grew up in an atmosphere of trauma and rage and abuse, emotionally, physical. Was there physical abuse?
So one of the things my father used to do was pin me down and tickle me. So he'd put his knees on my upper arms, and then he'd tickle me until I was screaming and begging and, like, just, you know, pleading until I'd, like, lost all my dignity. Right. And then he'd tell me, "We're just playing. This is supposed to be fun. Like, aren't you ridiculous?" Right?
Oh my God, I'm just having a flash. I actually was tickled like that too.
Yes.
And
right?
it's like, you feel so powerless and trapped, and it's like an older man, and you're like, this is not fun. And they are enjoying your powerlessness, I guess. I don't know. What is that?
Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Oh my God, I'm getting uncomfortable.
Okay. I'm so sorry.
No, this is good. It's me and you talking, and this is like hitting me in a way where I've been through not the same, but like, that to me was a moment where, as a young girl, I knew, like, people could overpower me, and me saying no and stop didn't mean anything to them.
No, in fact, not only did no and stop not help, I had to say certain words, and I had to say them clearly, even though I was screaming and crying. And so I had to find some level of control within myself to say these words, uncle, or whatever it was, you know, that uncle.
Yeah,
know.
Uncle, like, stop. Yeah.
Yes. And then to be derided after that, to be ridiculed because you weren't enjoying it, even though he was, right? Yeah. It was brutal. Yeah. And so this is what I grew up in. So I was the rebel child. You know, I was the one who rebelled. And so as a teenager,
can I ask how many brothers and sisters you have?
I have one brother.
Okay. So there was two of you. Okay.
There's two of us. Yes. So I grew up, I was the absolute rebel. I was the troublemaker. Because I was fighting for myself. And so now when I look back at it, I realized that those times when I was speaking out, when I was doing things that were, I know now, incredibly inappropriate and unhelpful, in that context, they were appropriate responses. Like, not appropriate, but they were, you know, they made sense. That response made sense, even though it was unhelpful, even though I was labeled as bad, even though now I can see that was, you know, part of how I was surviving and how
your instincts, you were following your instincts, and you were pushing against this person that was inappropriate and abusive, and you were made to feel like you were the difficult one instead of there's a fucking problem in the household.
Yeah. And he used to call my teachers and say, because my father was a teacher, and he used to call my teachers and say, "I'm trying so hard. Oh, she's just impossible. And, you know, I love her so much, and she just won't listen." And so my teachers used to come at me, "Your father really loves you, and you're not putting in any effort." You know, people, right?
Such a liar. What a manipulator. Total narcissist.
Yeah, narcissistic, manipulative. So this was my world. This is the world I grew up in. And then I was about 16 years old. My parents had separated. My mother I was too much trouble for my mother, so she sent me to live with my father. I mean, she knew what he was like, but she couldn't handle me. So she sent me to live with my father. So I was living with
Here's my question for that, though. Can I circle back with your mom? Was there a part of you trying to desperately explain to your mom in your adolescence, when you didn't have the words, like, help, this has happened, no one has seen me, no one has seen my what has been done to me?
Oh, my mother knew.
Oh.
My mother knew. And when she originally walked out on my father, she took me with her.
Right.
But
then she sent you back.
In her mind, that was it. That's what she'd done. But I was broken in many ways.
Yes.
So I continued to be depressed. I continued to act out. And she got so frustrated with me that she sent me back to my father.
Because she probably didn't have the tools to know how to deal with a child that's been through trauma.
Exactly.
That she stayed in the relationship too long and allowed our kids to be treated this way. And she didn't have the tools or the skills or even the patience.
Yes.
To help heal her own child.
Yes.
Wow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So living with my father, he's an alcoholic. He probably poured me my first drink at 8. Right. So here we are, he'd give me shandies, which was in England, it's, beer and ginger ale together. And so, we used to, I could drink or whatever I wanted. So and I was going downhill really, really fast.
Yeah.
Like, let's just
the
say,
trauma, the drinking, alcoholism in your family, all of it. Yeah. Recipe for disaster.
Quit school at 15, tried to sell encyclopedias. It didn't work.
Wait, like going around to people's houses and selling encyclopedias? Oh my God.
I was desperate. There's no job for a 15-year-old who drops out of school. And there I was trying to escape in a way that was, not running away, which I'd also tried, right? I was trying to escape without trying to commit suicide, which I'd also tried. Right. So I tried all these ways of escaping that were helping. And so I quit school and I got a job as an encyclopedia salesperson.
Hey, you were just trying to survive, man. Like, I love that you were selling encyclopedias though. That's hysterical.
The thing was, I wasn't selling any. I was the worst. I was 15. I looked 12. Yeah. And we were like, go back to school, kid. So I was 16 and I lived in this crazy world. And I was I was a rebel. I was spiraling downward quickly, drinking, the whole bit.
Yeah.
And then I had an ominous invitation to my mother's house. When I got there, my mother was out in the yard mowing grass, not willing to come in. And so I went in and there was a boy from my past, a couple of years older than me. And we sat at the dining room table and he told me that my father sexually abused him. Yeah.
Wait, so did he show up and tell your mom and then she summoned you, a 16-year-old, to then get this news?
I don't know exactly what happened before I arrived. I don't really know the why I was told. Like, I don't really know that part of the story. I wasn't there.
Yeah.
But what, so I was told that my father sexually abused him, that on the farm, my uncle had a trailer in the back. He wasn't a real uncle. He was my father's best friend. And he had a trailer in the back because he used to come up and spend weekends all the time. And I loved this man. He was like, he sat me on his lap. He gave me secret treats. We had all our secrets together.
Ooh.
Wonderful secrets, right? He never harmed me. That trailer was where all the boys were taken. All the boys that were invited to the farm were taken to that trailer. And my uncle, who wasn't my uncle, and my father sexually abused them there, took photographs or whatever they were doing.
Together?
Yeah. They were partners in crime. Yes.
Wow.
So I found out that my father, not only did he abuse me in all these ways, he also abused boys.
Sexually.
Sexually. Yeah.
Wow. And he had a partner in crime for it. And your mother was just not there.
My mother was usually cooking or cleaning or doing something that moms back then did.
Wow.
Right?
Seeing all these young boys and not thinking or even wanting to know what was happening, probably.
Yeah. And
wow.
I think mostly on the farm, it was the repeated boys, right? It was the boys who hung out at the farm. And so it wasn't that there were a bunch of different boys coming through all the time. It was the boys that came. And I remember looking back, I know who the other abusers were because these two weren't the only ones. I could sit down and I could tell you who all the abusers were. And I think I could sit down and tell you who all the abused were too. But again, one thing I always say, and we can get into, did I tell? Because we can get into that in a minute.
Yeah.
But one strong thing I learned was you don't tell other people's stories, victim stories, right? Like if they're not willing to step forward, then there's really nothing you can do but just listen to them. And that's what happened with this young boy. I'm like, are you going to tell? And no, he wanted nothing to do with that. He didn't want to tell the police. He didn't want to come forward. He was telling me, but that was it.
I wonder why he just wanted some other person to know, and then telling you like took it off him. I wonder why he just wanted to tell you and not actually go to the police.
I'm sure he was telling his therapist and whatnot, but he didn't want to go to the police. And so I had so many mixed emotions. First, I felt like somehow I was lucky, even though all the abuse, like I had all these weird emotions, like I was the survivor because I didn't get sexually abused, and that I felt guilty because I didn't get sexually abused. And I felt ashamed because my father was a pedophile. Yeah. And I felt angry that this boy wasn't telling anyone. And I felt angry at my father. There was so much emotion running through me. Yeah. And I think this is a really important piece of the story. If anyone's listening and their father is a pedophile, or their mother or their brother or their uncle or their neighbor or whomever, that there are all of these emotions that run through you, and they're all really normal, right? You just... you learn how to work through them a little bit at a time, right? At first, the intensity is so strong. All I could do after that was go for very fast, long walks. Like I just didn't know what else to do. Right. I was going to hurt someone. I did actually consider hurting my father. I really did consider hurting my father.
What was your thoughts on that? Can I ask? Like, what was the imagination that was going through your mind? That fantasy?
The fantasy was that I could wipe him off the earth. That was the fantasy, that he was useless. All he did was carve a path of destruction. The world would be a better place.
Well, I can't say I don't agree with you at this moment. I would be doing the same thing. I'd be like, how can I poison him and then get rid of the body? Like he doesn't need to be on this planet.
Yes. No, I had this fantasy of him being found in a playground with a note stabbed through his heart, apologizing. Like I had all these fantasies, getting rid of him. What I did do, because this boy didn't want to tell, is I phoned Crime Stoppers anonymously and said, I happen to know that this man is doing this, and you should, I don't know, watch him or something.
That's amazing that you did that though. Like good for you to actually do something though, because you can't carry that around. That's actually very damaging just for you to carry around.
Yeah, they did nothing. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. And so for a little while, I stayed living with my father, chasing any boy who might come around. And then I realized I couldn't live my life like that. Like that just wasn't, I couldn't kill him. I couldn't protect everyone. And that although I was a holder of a secret, I had done everything I could. I had talked to the boy about telling, I had called Crime Stoppers. Yeah. I couldn't. And then I realized, and that's when I realized, wait a minute, I know who the pedophiles are and I know who the victims are. I know this, but there's nothing I can do with this. So I walked away from my family. I left. So I dropped out of school at 15. I dropped out again at 17. Mm-hmm. I dropped out in Canada, what's grade 12. I was missing one credit, refused to go back, found out I could go take kind of, what do you call it? Like,
GED, get it.
Well, college courses, but not like in a program, extracurricular kind of college courses. And in Canada, that actually landed up being good enough to get me into university. So I got into university. I left home for university. Yeah. And when I was done university, I flew out of the province and never went back.
Wow. So you haven't been back?
No, I've never been back. They are not good for me.
Yeah. Have you talked to either your mother or your father since then?
I did. Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely talked to my mother. Mm-hmm. I looked after her when she got Alzheimer's. I was her caregiver. She actually moved out here. And although we didn't resolve all of our issues,
which really doesn't happen you're lucky if you resolve your issues with your parents.
But we did come closer to some form of closure. Okay. And somewhat learn to appreciate each other, and I'm grateful for that. I used to try to connect with my father a little bit, but one day I called him on, I guess it was his birthday, and he screamed at me about, I'm only calling to find out whether he's traveling to some country where he's going to abuse boys. Like it was just so weird. He must have been very drunk. It was just so strange. And I thought, I can't do this. I just can't. I can't do it. And so I never called him again. Now, he was caught eventually.
Oh my God, that was my next question. But one thing I have to, before you get into this part that I'm dying to know,
Yes.
but when you kept trying to reconnect with him and then you realized you were self-abusing by connecting to your family of origin, it's the hardest thing. Even if your parents are abusers, I've been in a position where that was apparent, but like breaking that connection and finally walking away, you feel guilt. You feel like a bad daughter. You feel like you've like generations of damage. Did you feel that too? Because they say like you have to like be close to your blood, but it's like, no, you don't. You do not have to stick in a relationship that makes you feel bad or hurts you.
Yeah.
Progressive Snapshot can save you money based on how you drive and how much you drive. So the safer you drive, the more money you could save. Now, if you didn't hear that because you were looking at your phone while driving, let me say it again. Seriously, put down your phone. That is so unsafe. If you didn't do stuff like use your phone while driving, you could save money with Progressive Snapshot. But saving or not, just put it down. And if you did hear it the first time because you weren't looking at your phone, nice work. You'd love Snapshot from Progressive because it rewards safe drivers. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Snapshot not available in California and North Carolina or from all agents.
So I have two questions. How do you love a father like that? And how do you stop loving your father?
I know. Those are the questions. That's what I'm saying. Were those thoughts in your head when you finally broke that chain?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I have children, so I would never let him near them. Right. So,
right.
Yeah. And I just want to jump back to something, if you don't mind, just for your audience. If you were held down and tickled, like I was, that when I went to therapy, I was told that is a form of sexual abuse.
Oh, 100%. I knew that. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying, because it is, especially when, you know, you're telling the person tickling you to stop and they don't, and they're finding enjoyment and you're not. It definitely is. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, because tickling is an act of intimacy, right? So tickling is something that, you know, parents can lovingly do with children in an intimate setting, but it's also something that lovers do as part of an intimate act. And so I just wanted to, put that out there, because I know there's some confusion. Because I always say I wasn't sexually abused. Technically, that tickling was a form of sexual abuse. I wasn't abused at the same level the boys were.
Yeah. And abuse looks different in all forms. I mean, my husband and I tickle my son, but as soon as he says stop, we stop. Like that is a rule in our house. Like it is. So thank you for clarifying. And if anybody has any more questions, they should reach out to you, because you've, been through it. So
Absolutely.
Thank you for that. But let's go back to where he got caught.
He got caught.
Yes.
So apparently he was communicating online with pedophiles in England, and the police had this huge sting, and the Canadian and the UK police had this huge sting going on. And that's how he was caught. He was communicating about the act, and they were, I believe, sending photographs back and forth, that kind of thing. So he was caught, and he was charged with, I believe it was possession of child pornography.
Yeah.
I believe that was the original charge. And then the police found out he was a teacher. So they took photographs, his like teacher photographs from all these years, and they plastered them all over the newspapers and the news in Ontario.
Good.
Yeah. And a boy came forward. I should say a man came forward, because at this point he was a man, but he was a boy. He was quite young when he was abused. His name, as far as I know, has never been released, but he came forward and they charged my father with a sexual assault on a minor, a charge that in Canada never runs out, right? Like there's some things that, if you steal something 10 years later, you can't be,
Which I never understand in that statutory rape 7 years. I'm like, no, you raped somebody. It doesn't matter if it's been 7 years, 20 years, 30 years, it counts. Thank you, Canada. Like, ugh. Yeah.
In Canada, child sexual assault, there's no limit. No. So my father was charged in 2012. So he was very old at the time, right? He was 80-ish around the time Yeah, he was 80ish when he was actually found and charged. So this man who's now a full grown man, who knows what his life is like, children, no children, grandchildren, even he was, 8 at the time. It was done in, I think, the early 60s.
Yeah.
The assault, the timeline for the assault was in the early 60s, and this happened in 2012. So what is that? 40 years later?
Yeah, at least, yes.
But the charge went through, and he pled guilty.
Bravo to that man, for putting out there, because especially there's so much stigma and shame about being sexually assaulted and sexually molested, especially a young boy, that this podcast has actually showed me how many young men actually get sexually assaulted. And we always talk about women. So bravo to him, because most of the time nobody says anything.
That was a brave act. I so agree. The one thing there's a piece of me, and I understand why his name is not given. I totally get it. But there's a piece of me that would love to thank him personally for being so brave and putting an end to that
cycle, abuse, him going around and putting more conflict and pain on other people.
Exactly. Because my father's been doing this all these years, and I know, and there's nothing I could do with that information. And it was heartbreaking on a daily.
So how did you get through that pain of knowing his secret and get help and tell the boys don't go there and all that stuff? How did you go through that grieving process? Because that has to be very, very difficult as a daughter.
Yeah, I think that it happened over time, right? So my first response was to hurt him. My second response was to try to save all the boys. My third response was absolute exhaustion. I can't live like this. This can't be my life. I need to cut ties and leave. Mm-hmm. And when I cut ties, then I went through a grieving process, not only just with my father, but with his side of the family as well, right? Like, I don't know if they're afraid of him or what, but they continued to have contact with him, and Christmases or whatnot. I don't know exactly what that looked like since I left.
Well, I think people don't want to see that. You know what I mean? Unless they have the actual proof or see it with their own eyes, it's easier to deny than actually accept it. And I think people have a hard time, especially with this subject matter, seeing it. They don't want to see it because then they blame themselves too for allowing it to happen. My experience, I could be totally wrong, but yeah.
I don't know, but I know that I think 2 of his nephews went to court to speak up for him, and one of them is the reason he didn't end up going to jail, because there's this way that you can be a guardian, and the judge said, well, this man is so old, we won't put him in jail. He's on house arrest, but he needs someone to help him. And so I think it was and I don't know, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was one of my cousins, one of his nephews that took on that role for him.
Wow.
So I don't really understand all of the details because I needed to walk away and not know. But I did get a phone call from a family member when he was arrested. And so I did follow through the news. I followed the trial and the outcome. But back to your question of what do you do?
Yeah.
You feel pain and you allow yourself to feel pain. And I felt a lot of shame. That was the hardest part, was that shame. Just, I started to tell people who I like really, 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 really trusted, like really, really, really trusted.
Yeah.
And that was how I started. And the more I spoke about it, now I'll sit on your podcast and say, don't even need to be anonymous. Let's talk about it, because somebody needs to be talking about this. So I've come to the point where I can just talk about it. But it took many years of talking in private, talking to safe people, leaving it behind and building a new life, right? Having my own children. I have 2 daughters, right? Having my own children and moving forward. So there's a piece of feeling the pain and allowing the pain to move through you so it can leave, talking about it in private and then in more public spaces as you leave that shame behind.
Yeah. As you heal, then you're able to share it with everybody else because you're healed from it and you do the work.
Yeah. And then there's building the new story.
Oh my God. You're giving me like goosebumps right now, because I'm going to ask you a really question that I think other people and parents, especially, I'm a parent to a young boy. And after doing this podcast, like I said, so many young and older men have told me about molestation. I've had more men come on my show and talk about it than women. And we know 1 out of every 3 women have been sexually assaulted. 1 out of 6 men have been sexually assaulted and molested. I think it's 1 out of 3 at this point. So if a parent is out there listening, how can a parent protect their child from that kind of situation, especially when it's usually someone close? Like for me, I'm just going to say, I don't believe in sleepovers or go away camps. Like that's not happening for my child. So how are you as a mother being with your background, protecting your 2 daughters?
So both of my girls have been to away camps and sleepovers and all of that stuff. They've been to school trips, homestays even, right? So both of my girls had all of those experiences. I think those are really important childhood experiences, sleepaway camps, sleepovers, and I didn't want to deny them that. And so instead of insulating them from that, I taught them to speak up. I'll never forget when I think my oldest was probably about 3 and we were out somewhere and I don't remember what she wanted to do, dash across the road or something. So I grabbed her and she stopped and she looked at me and said, I don't like how you're touching me. Don't touch me like that. Because I taught her those words. And I thought, wait, you're not supposed to use them on me.
And then you're like, actually, bravo, you're right. I shouldn't touch you like that. Thank you, daughter.
Exactly. And then trying to explain to her, it's like, I'm sorry to grab you. You were going to run across the road and I want to keep you safe. Another thing I did is we had a secret word. And so if anyone ever came to school and said, oh, your mom said I should pick you up, that person would need to know the secret word in order to get them to leave with them.
That's good.
My daughters were cheerleaders. Sometimes the moms or dads would say, oh, your parents not here. Well, I'll take you home. And my kids would say, I'm sorry, I can't go with you. I'd have to call my mom first and get permission. So I taught them never to get into somebody's car, no matter your best friend's dad or mom, you don't get into their car unless you call me and you tell me, because as soon as an adult knows where you are, it reduces the risk.
Yeah.
And so I gave them the skills. I gave them the skills to deal with bullies. I gave them the skills to speak up. As my children got older and they wanted to, like my kids went to French schools in Canada. And so they bused because it was a little further away sometimes.
Yeah.
I taught them how to behave on a bus, what to deal with, how to deal with people. If they felt uncomfortable, they would call me. I'd meet them at the bus stop. So we had all of these pieces in place that helped them be safe and also allowed them to have the freedom that I believe is healthy for children to have, that running out in the neighborhood playing and taking the bus and going to sleepovers and camps and whatnot. Yeah, although they did always go to camps with friends. That was something that, you looked after each other. And even now, my daughters are older now, they're nightclub age. And I say, you go into a nightclub together, you come out together.
Yeah.
You buy a new one. I don't care if it's a $20 drink. There are all these rules that I've taught my kids to keep them safe. So unfair that we have to live by these rules. But, I want them to have as much freedom as they can within safety. And girls should be allowed to dress how they want.
Exactly.
Butts off. Girls are supposed to be allowed to do all these things. It's not supposed to be unsafe. And so I'm trying to find ways for them to do that in a super as safe as possible way.
Well, I'm just so grateful you shared all those tips. Just as a parent myself, hopefully I changed my mind about sleepover just with my experience and my addiction and hearing it every day. It's just, for me, it's a no-go right now. I just wish I could change my mind, but I can't. But he's about to be 4. So who knows? Right. But I do have those conversations, and I've talked about touching the private parts. No one's allowed to touch it. You say no, you say, don't touch me like that. I have already had those conversations at 2 and 3. And my husband was even he doesn't understand. He understands. He understands. We have to trust that he understands, and we're protecting him and we're helping him. So I am so grateful. Is there any last thing you want to say before we wrap this up?
And so I guess the last thing I want to say is, if you have a story, get it out in a safe place. If you want my full story, you can pick it up. My book is out now. The Devil's Daughter is the name of the book, and it is out now. You can read it. And then if you want to connect with me, melodyannowen.com, use the contact page, tell me your story. I'm an excellent secret keeper, apparently. And if just get it out. That's all I want to say is just get your story out in a safe place.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing your journey and your truth and everything you've been through. I'm just eternally grateful to know you. So thank you for sharing this thing no one talks about.
And thank you for having me. I really appreciated the time today.
And if you want to be on the show, please email me at secretlifepodcast@icloud.com. Until next time. Thanks again for listening to the show. Please subscribe, rate, share, or send me a note at secretlifepodcast.com. And if you like to check out my book, head over to secretlifenovel.com or Amazon to pick up a copy for yourself or someone you love. Thanks again. See you soon.
When you need milk for Zoe and a cold brew for yourself, Kroger Delivery will get you just what you need in as little as 30 minutes. Open the Kroger app and start your cart, whatever the cart. Whenever, wherever. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Delivery times not guaranteed. Restrictions may apply. See site for details.
When you're a Boost member, you get free delivery, double fuel points, and lots more. Sign up at Kroger.com/boost.
You could save big when you bundle your home and auto with Progressive, but when we just come out and say it, it feels like it falls a bit flat. So we're going to use humor. But we don't want to insult your intelligence, so nothing too goofy. And we need to avoid any polarizing topics. Oh, and it has to be about how you can save big when you bundle your home and auto with Progressive. You know what? Maybe humor is a bad idea. Yeah, it's never going to work. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Discount not available in all states or situations.